right. Well, here we are. It's just me today. It's like the new version of Budgets and Belly Laughs. My co host, my beautiful wife, is actually home because, like we mentioned last week, we actually gave birth to our beautiful daughter. She came into the world a week early, and we are still navigating really what it's like when you are a couple and you're running a business together, and then one of you has to step away. We have new routines. I'm operating on less sleep than I've usually, probably since the Army. It's the last time I've probably gotten less sleep for that. And so this podcast has a set time, and we decided that we were actually going to do the podcast and do it remote. So she could come in from the house, and then I would be in the office. And she asked for 15 more minutes, but my schedule's jam packed. And so we're actually going to do really what life is, which is one of us can make it and one of us cannot make it. And so I'm going to do my best to keep everyone entertained with things that are going on in our company, in our life until she comes on. And it'll kind of be this really big pop in where she's like, oh, hey, I'm here. Everything's normal. The question is she asked for 15. Is she actually going to be at the 15 mark? Is she going to come in early at the 12? Or are we going to wait till 20, 23, 24 minutes before she actually shows up? So that'll be we're taking bets right now. I can tell you where I'm at, but it'll sound mean, which is typically she'll be a little bit on the later side. So we'll go ahead and go for it. So one of the things that we talk about in this show, and because when we're together, we talk a lot about what we do, what's going on in our lives, and we laugh a lot. The two of us together, there's a lot of laugh. When we actually separate, we're actually very much more business oriented and focused on just the different tasks that we're working on, which certainly makes for a good time because I can always count on her to kind of bring some of that laughter, make me laugh, I make her laugh, and we really do enjoy and having fun together. Having a baby, we had planned for March and we kind of had an idea of what our schedule would look like. We'd actually scheduled some events prior so that we could enjoy some of the time that we would have by ourselves. We had company events, we had folk things that we wanted to accomplish. We actually even had a checklist of things that she was to get done before she would go on maternity leave. And that list was cut dramatically short with the early arrival of Abigail. And so we are super excited to have her here. We wouldn't trade it for anything. But at the same time, we have to pivot and make a lot of changes. And I think when you're running a small business and medium-sized business, and you have team members that are with you, and you're trying to set expectations and kind of keep everything going forward, having a key member leave, let's say when you have 10 on-site people or less, when you have 10% of your workforce actually leave, it can actually have a big impact on everything that's happening. And this has also prompted us to have a lot of discussions on, hey, what kind of policies are we going to have in place when we have team members that decide that they're going to grow their families and take a leave of absence as well from the company. And of course, there's a bunch of legality and laws that you have to follow if you do certain things. If you do something for one, you have to do for all. People put policies in place. We were actually instrumental in getting some really nice policies at one of the last companies that we worked at, both together. And there are some companies out there with some amazing benefits. And if you work for one of those companies, you can partake in those. They have some great maternity leaves, and some of these companies, they have some really amazing paternity leaves that you get paid at and you can be home. For those of us who are running businesses and are entrepreneurs and we're out there, this becomes really hectic, right? So you have entrepreneurs who are female, and then they plan to go on maternity leave or they have a child. And we joked, I think, last week about how there was a coach that showed up for a national championship game, the day after she gave birth, the 2 days after she gave birth. And that's amazing. But there's really a lot of things that go into the thought process of how you're going to continue doing it. And so I can't tell you what to do. I can only kind of tell you what we're doing here and how we're approaching it. And so I'll go ahead and just kind of share some of those things with everyone and kind of what's unhinged in our life since this has started. And one of the things is just what time we come to work. And so everyone knows I'm like the early riser. I've been an early riser since high school, and early rising to me is around 6 a.m. And for a lot of you entrepreneurs out there who are, especially if you're in a service-based job where you're trying to get either teams together or yourself together and get out on the road, you're trying to get in early, get things, up and going and get out. And so now, and then Beck, on the other hand, is the late riser. So I'm usually out the door telling her, don't forget to wake up and make it to the office by, a fair time, so to speak. And she'll sit there and shake her head, but it's true. And we laugh about it. It's one of those things, that we do in our life. She, also like, uh, when she's not here, I can say things, but when she's not here, I'm actually more scared to say things because she's not here to defend herself or laugh about it. So it sounds mean, but it's not. It's just our reality. But she'll tend to come in a little bit later or push things or kind of reassign things or push things along through the day. And I tend to be a little bit more on the punctual side. So now all of a sudden, Abigail's come. And it's like, hey, how do we handle this huge impact in our lives where both of us are not going to get sleep? And what we've done is we've actually divided the night into 2 shifts. She is always, because she usually gets up later, she actually goes to bed later. She's the night owl, and I get up earlier. So we decided, what if she stayed up a little bit later and I got up a little earlier? And so, for our home and for what we're doing, we specifically, she's basically up till 3, 1 o'clock. So we have a feeding at 1 o'clock, and then she kind of lays down and kind of goes to sleep. And then I get up at 3:30, and then I take over. So she's kind of on watch for till about 3:30, and then I come in and I'm doing that. Now, originally, I truly thought, I swear, in my mind, I thought this is a great deal. Now I have a reason to get up earlier. I will go ahead and feed her. I'll change some diapers and I'll put her back to bed. And then I'm going to get like 2 hours of work in. I'm going to get like more time because my plan is still to go to bed at 10. So I'm just going to lose a couple hours sleep and and I'll get more work done. And so here's what's actually happened. I'm exhausted. So, I actually get up. It's not like a one and done, you feed, she goes back to bed. It's like 4 o'clock, we start, 4:15, she's kind of done. And then I'm like burping and slapping and slinging and all these other things for 30 minutes before she can be laid down. And I have like this rule of thumb. It's like 45 minutes I'm going to hold her. And so I get her down by 5. So now 5 a.m. comes. And we got this super cool monitor and ankle bracelet. Like, this girl's on lockdown. We got an ankle bracelet on her that's telling us her heartbeat and that she's alive. There's a little dial on the shelf. And if it's like rotating green, it means your child's alive. Like, it is the coolest thing. So you don't have to worry about that and check if she's breathing and everything else. And then what we also have is this camera that's pointed directly on her. And what I found is that I can't work. Actually, one day for one meeting, I did go down and I brought this little monitor with me and I could do it. But I'm actually really tired. And where I can really get up at 6 o'clock, no problem, I cannot get up at 4 o'clock, no problem. And so I end up kind of like falling in like a very loose sleep. And I'm laying there and I'm like with one eye open, I'm staring at this monitor. The other eye I open up, I'm looking to see the wheels turning green. And I do think this is going to change over time. We have a preemie, a newborn that's brought home. I think there's a little bit more anxiety, more like, hey, is everything going okay? Especially since they basically scare the shit out of you when you're in the hospital because they're like, oh, she had episodes and everything's bleeping and blah, 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 and going down. And so when you get home, it's like PTSD that you have from this happening. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen at home. And so we're kind of in this point where I'm monitoring. So any sleep that I thought I would get is being woken up by checking these monitors and things. And then any work that I thought I would be doing is just, I'm too scared to leave the area to actually go do the work. And so when I look at it all, and I commit to kind of leaving the house around 8:30 now to get there. So I'm basically on shift from 3:30 to 8:30 and taking care of everything and kind of do like a pass the baton over to Beck when I leave. And then she can kind of take over through the day from there. And what I found is that I have just enjoyed the time from the 7 o'clock time when I get her up for the 7 o'clock. and just holding her and talking and walking around. I am doing some things because it's light out, letting Pepper the dog out. I'm taking care of her and feeding her with one arm. And two things are going to happen over the course of the next 6 months. This left arm is going to become extremely strong from holding this child. And my right arm, I feel like I'm like doing things that typically take two hands. I'm just doing with one hand. Like try opening up a Coke bottle, try opening up a juice bottle, try putting a cap onto something with just one hand. It has been hard, but I'm getting better each and every day. And yeah, and so that's kind of what we've done. Now, we've made some changes. Beck is definitely more tired than I am in this. And so how does this impact the company? So this is something that any of you, whether you're in a home service or any type of service, or you run it, you have an office, you go in and you have even if you're both not with the same company, all of a sudden there's this huge liability, and I don't want to say liability, this huge requirement for your family to kind of be there. And I think a lot of people, that's where kind of time, getting time off or taking time off really does help. And if you can do that, I mean, go for it. Absolutely. Personally, I don't know if I could actually sit at home all day and just tend to a baby's needs. I feel like I would get stir crazy. And I know right now that Beck is super stir crazy. So she is like literally like, oh my gosh, get me out of this house, which is why when I get home and I'm leaving a little bit early each day to kind of give her some time, she's literally jumping in the golf cart and being like, let me go to the grocery store and like at least go see that there's other people in this world walking around. We have ate really well every night. I mean, we've had great meals. We've cooked every night. It has not affected a lot of the things that we normally would do, except going out on the town. We're definitely not doing that. And then let's take a look at business, right? I've definitely seen my schedule get crammed this week. I'm not even joking. I have moved my team's meetings around every day. Every day, I'm kind of moving people 15 minutes, 30 minutes, next day, whatever. And so there's a huge disruption that takes place, not in your own life, but in your team's life. And I'm actually not sure that I actually put a lot of thought into that beforehand, thinking how much it would affect other people. If you have a great team in place, which we do, people are, you're basically seeing everyone take control, right? It's like they know their tasks. Everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're building things. They're doing orders. They're taking care of software clients, and they're filling in the gaps. So I have to give a huge shout out to our team here. They've done an amazing job this week, and really the last 2 weeks, as we are traveling back and forth in the mornings to the hospital. But I would say everyone's doing amazing. So when you're looking at going on, one of these leaves, I would say that taking the time out, one of the things that Beck and I did was we kind of mapped out what her time would be before, and then kind of loosely what her time would look like afterwards. And I thought that was good enough. And I really didn't take into account the impact of the team. I think sitting down with a team and saying, hey, we're going to be gone, or my schedule is going to be gone. How is this going to impact your daily lives? Whether you might have morning meetings that you shouldn't really push because that's impacting other people's schedules or meetings that they might have. So I would definitely recommend sitting down with the team, kind of going through and being like, hey, what are things that I can do and that you can do, or that you need from me to help this schedule get through a little bit better? And I think that would be something that would be huge in your pre-planning. And unlike us, which is just being very reactionary at this point to kind of what's going on. One of the other things is kind of like, meeting clients' expectations and deliverables. And so a lot of times, you can use the excuse, I just had a baby. I think that excuse is good for like 3 days, maybe 4. You might be able to squeak out a fourth day. But after that, there's one thing that I always preach, which is we are inherently selfish and we're looking after ourselves. And so all your clients are looking after themselves and their projects, their purchases, the things that they want, the things that they're trying to buy from you. And so I would say definitely really be cognizant of that kind of, we'll call it an excuse in your life. We don't want to be the kind of company that sits there and goes, hey, keep pushing you back. And then what's going to happen is that you're going to end up losing a client and you'll be like, oh my gosh, I had a baby. Why would you do that? And the reality is that that company has needs, just like your company would have needs for that. And so don't get caught in that trap. I think we've actually done a really good job of not using the baby excuse. I have tried not to use that excuse at all. We've had a few clients and people that have actually asked, and then I've shared like, oh yeah, everything's going great. Here's a picture. Here's some things that are going on that's fun, and kind of sharing that. But other than that, keeping that out of the professional part of your life, I think is probably super, super important. Now, I'm just going to point out that we are at the 16-minute mark inside of this podcast. And I typically do not check my phone, but I know that we got a message 8 minutes ago that said, okay, getting ready. She finally went down. Now, that was 8 minutes ago, so we have no idea what's happened in this last 8 minutes, but we're expecting her to join at any time. Hopefully, Maria, you're messaging with her and she'll pop into place here. The communication from back home, right? So if you communicate with your significant other back and forth throughout the day, whether you work together or whether one of you is running the business and the other one's works for an employer or something else, I would tell you that our daily communication has gone way down. And that's because one of us is very busy doing something. I'm actually very busy playing catch up with a few reduced hours at the office. And she is playing catch up because she's taking care of a child and it's week 1. And so she hasn't quite figured everything out. I am convinced that everyone's going to think that I'm going to start smelling like milk because although Abigail doesn't really spit up a lot, I've noticed it's on my skin. So I'm not sure what to do because I can't take another shower before I get to the office. So hopefully we'll figure out how to get kind of that under control. And then one of our good friends, they said to us, we're so excited that you had a baby. We can't wait to see what you come up with baby tech. And so, we build products for a living. And one of the things that we love to do is just, kind of create things, whether it's, software, physical products, et cetera. And I would say this, one, I am so impressed by the amount of baby tech that already exists. Like I mentioned before, we have this little ankle monitor. I feel like our child's on lockdown. It goes to a sensor in the living room, and it shows green, blue, orange, and red, depending on what's happening. And then everything is being logged on my phone. And so I'm not sure if we could ever build anything nicer or cooler than what that is. I will tell you, like, the different size bottles, and there's an entire education that's needed on bottles. I don't even want to get into bottles. I hope we get rid of bottles soon. We have a camera system, monitors on all of the floors of our home. I think that's super cool. And other than that, she just doesn't move. So she just kind of wiggles, cries, feeds, and we change some diapers. So I don't really think there's a lot of baby tech coming from Public Products anytime soon. I think we're going to be much more of the consumer and using those products. And maybe we'll throw out a review here or there as we kind of review those and just really showcase how some of these things, people are solving problems and how they are changing our life for the better, which is super cool for us all to as kind of like just consumers. I feel like if you're having a baby in this century, in the year 2025, the amount of coolness that is available to you is just out of this world, and probably just too much of it. We have a really cool stroller / carrier called a Duna. This thing, like a push button, it transforms into a stroller. So you don't have to move your baby in and out of a car into different items. You can just use one. Super cool. It's funny because for the last couple months, every time we saw a Duna, we would ask the person, hey, how do you like your Duna? And they were like walking reviews. Oh my gosh, I love this product. I love this product. And it kind of made me think when I'm looking at these items and looking at reviews, this is probably the first time, not the first time in my life, but where I've put the most intensity into the review process or reading reviews and seeing what other people liked it. I know in a couple months ago, we really talked about how at our franchise Stay Cool, how getting those reviews in the summertime were just huge. Like seeing the feedback come back, having 20 something 5-star reviews come in over the summer was just a great achievement for us, and just showed what we were doing right. And looking at their comments, they really validated some of the communication things that we wanted to put forward. And so I'm going to go back and just say, these reviews count. If you're not doing reviews inside of your company, inside of your product, I'm definitely strongly going to encourage you to kind of go out and put that program in place. If you're a service-based or have a brick and mortar store, getting in Google Business is relatively easy. I think getting verified that you're a true location and taking pictures of inside and out is probably the hardest. And I think we actually went through that process 6 times before Google actually accepted the fact that we existed and that we were that true location. And then after that, it's huge. I'm not exactly sure what percentage of people actually do a Google search versus a Google map search. And so Beck and I are actually totally different. When I'm searching for anything in this town, I actually always start with Google Maps and I do a Google map search, because then it's going to show me businesses that are in my area or location. When you do a search for on just Google, you get search engine results, and then off to the right side, you might get some Google map search results and showing some things that are located near you. I would tell you, Google Business, getting those done is going to really increase it. Looking at our stats, the amount of people that have Googled us or have come through that Google listing with very little additional SEO, with no pay-per-click, is actually amazing. And so definitely go out for that. We just hit the 22 mark. I had my money on 22 minutes, so I lost. And we're not really sure what's happening back home, but I'm assuming all is good. So we're going to send a quick message to her. And just like that, right when I sent the message, she showed up on the screen. Hear me?
Of course. Can you hear
You're
me?
very light.
So are you.
All right.
I'm not using my headset. I
Section.
can. Let me just
Oh,
get it on.
I think Maria just actually increased my headphones, and so I can actually hear you. Um,
Yeah, but
Nice shirt,
this
by
will be
the way.
better anyway.
You there?
Yes.
All right. Beck,
Does this
we
sound
pretty
better?
much have been talking nonstop the fast
You're really
for the
quiet.
last 23 minutes. I think it's all you, because we're all good in the studio here.
Okay. You've been talking nonstop for
Yeah,
23 minutes.
nonstop. I don't even think I've taken a breath. Yeah,
Really?
I've kind of gone
As
through.
part of the pod. Am I just
You're just
joining?
joining midstream. You're joining midstream, and I basically have talked to you how we're going through our hours, how we're trying to find our balance, how I've taken the early
Oh my gosh,
shift and I'm exhausted
hilarious.
and I thought I could work but I can't work. I've talked about you just being tired and staying up late and even later and being tired, and I've talked about
Oh my gosh.
how you and I kind of put together a plan, but we never really talked to the team members and said, hey, by the way, I'm not going to be here. How does this impact?
Me.
Well, you're not going to be here, but even me showing up, even an hour
Oh,
later, how many meetings I've moved just this week to try to, keep somewhat of
I
our
know.
life
Here's
together.
the thing I will say. We are very, first of all, we promise this should be one of the last baby podcasts because we're not trying to make it about baby. But having a family and balancing family with business is a challenge for
Yeah.
everybody. It's huge. When we were at the Source event late last year, there was a guy who was talking about starting his own business, and he was trying to have a new baby and how hard it was, and that's kind of the situation we're in right now. But what I was going to say is that wow, talk about my brain working for a podcast is really interesting. But no, what I was going to say is that we planned to be much more planned, in the sense that we had talked about getting all the videos
We had
ready,
planned to
like
plan, people.
bucketing things. Yes, but nothing ever goes to plan. But nothing ever goes the way you planned it to be when you're having a baby. But I mean, I feel like it's worked out well, and we're making it happen. But we were gonna do video recording, so there was like tons of stuff to
Hmm.
edit and just prepare ourselves. But our baby came, 2 months early, so
Right. And that's the
there
things
you have
that happen, where we had planned to plan and we were going to plan in that last month there to do a bunch of stuff. And then that time was actually stolen from us. It was taken
it. It
away.
was such a good plan. What a great plan we had,
We have a saying we have a saying in the Army. I can't remember exactly where I heard it from, but there was probably a battalion commander or something along those lines. And he had said, our goal is not to plan to 100%. Our goal is to plan to 80% and execute that plan 100%. And I always kind of say that it's like, you know what? It's always okay to leave a little bit left undetermined and then just kind of focus on execution and getting that across the table.
like bringing product to market.
It's like bringing product to market, right? And forcing that product into market. We're in the process of literally forcing a product into actually a couple products into market that still have some issues, but that we're like, you know what? Here's what I think a lot of people, if you're getting into business, and I talk to a lot of people who are trying to get in and start something, and they always underestimate the lead time for sales, and especially on the software side, they're like, you know what? When this is done, we're going to turn it on. We're going to get sales, and we can look at some older projects, and we literally look at it. We had a project where we celebrated when we got one order in the first month. We were like, yes, and we made like $20, and then the next month
But it was
it was
exciting.
exciting because we validated a need, but it was one order. The next month we had three. The next month we had seven. The next month we had 12. And even at the fourth month in with 12 sales, and I'm just going to throw out some crazy numbers here. Let's say we made $20 for the 12 sales. We made $240, but the overhead was 30,000.
Right.
If you look at the development teams and the people that were actually building the projects out and all the work that kind of went around it, huge amounts of overhead. And the question is we made $240. We just lost 20 some $1,000 this month. Is this ever going to happen? Now we can look back at that product years later and see that product's now doing, $4 or $5 million a year. And so we can go, wow, that's pretty impressive. That you get to that point. And so you have to have that ability to kind of get through all the downtime. And we talk about this. I mean, you and I talk about this with the Dusted. And, I've always shared with you, like, hey, this is I could probably say this because you're not here. And it's like, I almost wait.
Because well, I can't physically hit you in
Yeah. And it's kind
person.
of like, we lose money on that every month. And and it I would say this year going into year 3 of it, and where we've done amazing things, right? We're in hundreds of stores. We just
Year 3 of the business, year, 2 of being in a physical
Yeah,
location,
yeah.
headquartered.
And so looking at what we're producing, we're in hundreds of stores. We just got a PO that's going to bring us into 300 more stores. And you see this and you go, oh my gosh, there is light. Like you can look at it and go, all this hard work is paying off, but we still lose money today. And so we have to know
But I can't remember how many years was Amazon losing money before they started to profit.
Amazon still loses money today.
Today.
That's like one of their biggest shareholder beefs is like Amazon doesn't do distributions. They've taken huge losses building out AWS infrastructure and all these things, but they did it and look at where they're at today. So when I look at them,
Well, everyone can look at that company and go, this isn't a lot, like, this isn't gonna
Mhm.
never become profitable, right? Like, I don't know what the right term is, but you would never look at it and be like, oh, I made a poor
well,
investment in a company that wasn't
yeah, and a company like them, I wouldn't look at profitability. I'd look at just revenue growth. Like if your revenue
right.
growth is going to the roof, but we choose to take that revenue and hire people in advance of what we need. So a great example is the positions we have open today, right? So, and you're going to kill me, but I'm thinking of a third position, and I'll bring it up here just because again, you're not here to hit me. So we have two.
I'm like, by the time I got to get back in that office, otherwise I'm going to be
Yeah, for
replaced.
sure. There's two positions. You can never be replaced, love. Yeah.
I'm joking.
Um, okay, so we have two positions, and it's like if we bring both these positions on, we have not got the revenue in the door in order to support them for, let's say, a full year. But we're looking at it and going, you know what, we're gonna take a gamble, knowing that if we bring them in and we get them in for a couple months, that the sales that they'll start bringing in will actually cover their salary, allow us to do even more. So a lot of times,
That's the goal with any sales
what's that?
reps, to pay for
Yeah,
themselves.
sales
That's
is
just
a
the
huge
goal with
thing.
any sales reps. A lot of sales,
Yeah,
yeah, a lot of sales positions, you got to hire them and say, look, if, I mean, based on historical sales cycles in the business, and sometimes you're creating those sales cycles because it is a new startup, but you've got to have data to say, okay, we've had, people in the past start paying for themselves in 6 months, in 9 months, in whatever. And that's their trial period. Like other people come into businesses and it's like, hey, we're going to see what your performance looks like in the first 90 days. But for sales reps, it's like, sink or swim. Like you're either going to do it or you're
right.
not.
And that's I'm kind of thinking the 90 days for us. In 90
Mm,
days, there needs to be something in
which
the
is typical.
pipeline. We're not selling multi-million dollar things, but we are selling some high ticket off. We have a great mixture of high, middle, and low ticket items that can be sold. And I think just focusing on those, laying out some funnels, laying out some strategies that they could do a great job. I know that if I stop and do everything, one, I wouldn't like it because I'm not a sales guy, I'm a product guy. Um, but I know it can be done because I've sold everything that's come to us today. And so, just with the skill set that I possess, I know that I can bring in what we have today and into the future. So, now can we find the right person that can amp that up? And so, that's where we're going to take the risk. And then, all to say that we're not going to be profitable. We announced to our company, hey, we lost money last year. We made an additional investment in people and time, building and
Right.
equipment, and we're going to do the exact same thing again today or this year. So,
We have a couple of years of investment because we've got a lot of different business ideas and endeavors. So even if one particular business entity starts to become profitable, after a couple of years of being in business, after we made the investments, it's just revenue dollars that allow for us to grow in other areas
mhm.
and introduce new ideas that would be investments. I mean, I see us kind of spending money to make money for
I
years to
think so.
come.
I think we're going to be at the spend. I'm so glad that you saying this. This is like music to my ears. I could cry. I'm so excited to hear you say this.
I'm like,
So I have a new
it
position.
doesn't mean I'm not going to be
I have a new position
stressed.
I'm thinking about.
Doesn't mean I,
I have a new
what did
position.
you just say?
You ready to hear
Okay.
it? Okay, so
Yeah,
what's
yeah.
the one
I was
thing?
going to say, I still want to go to Greece as long as that doesn't
Yeah, yeah, no, 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 no.
impact our
Okay,
travel.
so I have an idea. Okay, and you working from home actually helped me spawn this, and me having to do the work to do the dusted
Okay.
filming yesterday helped me think of this.
Oh, okay.
And so
Maria must
Maria
miss
does
me.
miss you. She has to work with me again. And I'm like a diva, right? Like I'm just like I'm literally like framing the shots for it. I'm like, hey, let me know if you're doing too much. Producer Chris is coming out. I'm gonna do this. Oh, Maria, come over here. And she's just like, and I know Maria goes back. I feel that's what I feel. I feel like Maria goes back and she goes, all right, I'm gonna let Chris just do his thing and just and I'm gonna execute.
It's so not. I will say there are certain people that are like really hard to work with, and when you find an employee like Maria who's so flexible, like
That's the key
she
word.
it
She is flexible. And she'll let me be
it
like
she is
whatever and she'll
unfazed.
be like, all right, let's do it. Let's go for it.
She is there, and it's genuine. Like sometimes you're like, oh, that person's like, sure, whatever you want. And they're like
No, she's
rolling their eyes in the back of their
yeah.
head. No, she's like, we're good to go. Let's just do it. And she's easy peasy. But I feel like I'm probably the opposite. I'm like, whatever, let's film it. Like, I'm like, we can try this, and it like looks like crap, and I'm like, good enough. like,
Oh gosh, we gotta replace her. Good enough.
but okay, what's your
Oh, she's switching
position? And
topics
while
right now.
you're what did I?
All right, we're losing you. Don't
Sorry,
be unplugging and get no blue screen of death over there.
I know. I need to just. I just need to go home and make it down.
No, we got 10 minutes. We got 10 minutes. You got the, look at this
So
me. I'm
hold
just like,
on
hey,
1 second.
not sure what's going on over there. And yeah. All right, well, she's gone. I'm going to tell everyone about this. Maybe she'll hear. Actually, she won't hear. We can actually keep this shot in here. I know you can kind of come back to me, right? And kind of go back and forth like we normally do. That's kind of funny. It's kind of like, whoa, what's over
What?
in that corner over there? Something special's over in the corner. What did we go
I'm
look at?
so
We have a
sorry.
little secret pile of gold. Hey, so what I was thinking was, is what's the one position that I said that will always have that I want, the one position I want in the office? You remember this position? I always say this. I go, one
You
day
want
we'll have.
sandwiches and soup? Oh no.
Yes. So I
I
was
can't believe
thinking
I was like,
here.
is this
I
really
was
where he's
thinking,
going? But okay.
yes. And so I made a parfait this morning, and the other day I forgot it, and today I forgot my
Devastating. By
soup
the
when I
way,
came to
his
the
favorite
office,
soup in
right?
the
And
world is
then
soup of Toscana.
my favorite soup in the world is
I'm
literally
gonna have
sitting at
some.
home
I'm
in a bowl
excited.
waiting for me. Yeah. And so one of the things I've always said is that I can't wait that we have the day, then we can have a little lunch deli area where people can make sandwiches and stuff. And then I thought about it and I was like, okay, we're looking at an acquisition this year and we have space. It's actually a very nice break room. Maria is so excited because you will not have to leave you'll actually have an area you can go to that'll be outside of your desk. It'll be
But
awesome.
some people like leaving the
And
building
then I was kind of
anyway, which is
thinking
fine
like,
too.
and she could still leave the building, but I'm going to come up with things that keep her to stay. And so I was thinking about this room and I was thinking like, how can we make it awesome? Right? Like, how can we make like the awesomest break room? And then I thought to myself, I was like, you know what? We need to build our deli bar right away. Like we shouldn't wait at all. Like in the plans that I have, let's go ahead and just put it in. And then I thought, okay, we need a fridge. And then I thought, you know what? If we had someone that just came in
Is this
from
my new
9 to 1,
position?
right? Who is someone,
Not for me,
this is the
for
new
someone
position,
else.
who is 9 to 1, not for you, not for you. And their goal was this: one was to procure the things for filming for our food products, for our dusted videos, to do setup, to do cleaning, etc. So
I
it's like
hate
we need this
cleaning
person.
dishes.
But their
Honestly,
additional
I
duty
hate cleaning.
was, yeah, and the additional duty was is that they will man like the breakfast bar, which would be like
I'm
boxes of
literally over
cereal,
here.
some
I
milks,
apologize to everyone,
some
but while
parfait
she's sleeping,
material.
like, I'm literally eating strawberries and drinking coffee because of
Yeah, so get her
yes.
done. Multitask. We call that multitasking in the 21st century here. Um, and then right, so it's like okay in the morning, and maybe even a little
An
omelet station,
omelet
maybe
station.
right, and then after that, yeah, and then after that, it's kind of like doing all the dusted steak prepare, filming, blah blah blah, and then lunchtime hits, and then it's manning the pulling out everything for the salad and the sandwich bar there, and making sure that everything's stocked.
Oh my
So I've been running
god.
the numbers, and I feel that this is a
Oh my
possibility in
gosh.
2025.
That's crazy. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking if we get a new building, we certainly should plan for the space, you know. And two, if you wanted to kickstart it, I guess I could cook some of the stuff to like serve before we hire someone full time. It could just be like a self serve thing first.
Yeah, it could start as like a self-serve, like I wouldn't
No, no.
self-serve
What I
people
mean is
making
like I could
omelets.
pre make soups,
So
I could pre make sandwiches, and then they could be like in a fridge, or we could have heaters.
well, okay. So I thought about this. All right. So we're building out Prodi HR to as our back end for our team to log in, see their points, see their reviews, see some links, links to different things, our company wiki, etc. And then I thought to myself, what if you could put an order in for the next day? So you'd be like, hey, tomorrow
Oh
morning I want a
my! Well,
strawberry
you'd have to
parfait.
have specific
And you could
items.
just click it.
There
Yeah,
couldn't
yeah,
be
it'd be
like,
select from a list,
make
right?
me a
So it's like, here's
French
the
dip
things that
with
we would
homemade
offer.
au jus. I'd be like, I can't help you.
No, no, none of that. And then you could say things like, hey, I'd like to have a ham and cheese sandwich, right? And so we would kind of forecast and know, but you could almost like just order from the deli, and this person could just be responsible for making sure that the items existed so that we could fulfill that. And so we're really only looking at maybe like an extra 2 hours a
Well,
day
we'll
of
see what it is.
work.
But here, you know what, you bring
And
up a good
so,
topic. Like you have mentioned this a couple of times and it's a dream of yours, but I think there's a huge aspect. We've talked so much about remote versus in person, but if you are an office where it's in person, it's like, what are you doing as an employer to make that an enjoyable place for people to come to work? And we've worked in companies in the past where there's been great um, benefits, and benefits aren't just health insurance
mhm,
and they're not
yep,
just, 401ks and things like that. It's like, what is the value in the everyday? And so I think that having food, like we've got snack train, like we love having snacks in the office. Can you take it to another level? And um, just having areas around the office where people can make phone calls and relax and take a break and enjoy it and not feel like they need to be sitting at their desk all day. And, like there's all kinds of.
right. And what, like, there's this Nintendo game, wall game, where you can play like old Atari games. Speaking of which,
Oh, you're wearing
this is
Atari. Look
like
at me. I came
amazing.
dressed in uniform. Did
I'm
you
wearing my
notice? I
Atari
got
shirt today,
I got my public product
and you're
stuff.
in uniform. It's like my one day this week I
We
have
could have
not worn a
matched.
uniform, and
Trust me.
you're like dotted out. Yeah, that's awesome. But the idea is, and why is this important to me? One is it's like leaving the office or packing a lunch adds an additional task to the team. And I kind of imagine this time or this area where we are able to bring everyone in. Like they wake up, they get ready to come to work. And I've really been working since we did Prodi X and we talked about the vision and the why. And we brought in the why. And then I actually never had a
Oh,
slide for the
talking about
why.
the
And so I've
lifestyle
actually
that we
been
want to
working on the
provide.
why. Yeah. Like what is it that we're trying to kind of create here? And although it seems so small to have something like a snack train, or like a super salad bar for lunchtime and sandwiches, if you can take away one element of decision making or worry out of someone's life, whether it's for breakfast or lunch, I feel like that's huge. And it's huge because it's in my life. Like
Well, there
I
are
literally sit
people
here and you
that
know
would
this.
pay.
How often do I go get lunch versus she brings me lunch and it's like, oh, by the way, do you want to eat?
Yeah,
And I'm like,
like
yeah,
no,
no, I'm
that's
be
so
good.
many people in the workplace, and we've worked in downtown locations where you can like order a sandwich and get it in or walk somewhere. There's not a lot of restaurants on the industrial drive where our corporate office is today, so it's not as easy to access food, not in a timely manner. And
Right.
usually what happens is people get back to back meetings. Because here's the thing, again, if you want to leave the office, if you enjoy going out and getting lunch, like there's oftentimes where you can like be like, hey, I'm with a coworker, I want to spend some time with you outside of work, let's go grab something. I've built some amazing relationships based on lunch dates, at an office. And I've got friends that I still see today because we made the time for each other outside of work. But there is this element of, you lose track of time and you end up not eating at all, or you end up eating, excuse my language, shit. You're ordering like pizza, or you're stopping and getting McDonald's because it's right there.
Oh, pieces of shit.
But
No, you're
right.
right.
And
It's
so
we're getting fast
offering
food.
something that
We're
would
getting fast
provide
food
a more
because
healthy
yeah,
lifestyle, and just accessibility is great. Even if they wanted to leave, if they have the time to leave, they can, but they know that they've eaten something and it can be separate from when they ate, hey, I'm going to get something in my belly while I'm on a call. Like either way, it's available. And there is a huge value to that. I do agree.
yeah. And so I was just thinking about it. I mean, we're and here's part of the process as well. Like we're bringing people in to interview right now, and I'm it's very funny. Maria was one of the first people that came into the office. And what did one of the things I told you about the office was if we had an office presence, people would take us for real, right? Like that was kind of like like,
Right.
hey, if you don't have an office, then are you really in business? And kind of that mentality. So we've done that. We executed on building this office, getting everything done, and then now we're bringing other people in, and they're seeing people working. And one gentleman yesterday said he's like, "Oh, I love this area." He was talking about our bullpen with our 8 desktops, and he was like, "This is really nice, and you have a cool office." And then I thought to myself, like, how cool would it be if you were bringing someone in to interview, and we give them a tour, and we end up in our little cafeteria, and we go and make we have coffee stuff to make coffees. We already have Snack Train. And then I could say, hey, come by for lunch. We'll have lunch, and we go in
Yeah.
and we have a sandwich and we have fresh
Yeah.
bread. Like, to me, those are some little perks that would just be like, you know what? Like, this place is fun,
So I
we
used to,
care.
a couple of things. One, when I originally worked for the first company, corporate company that I ever worked for just after graduating college when I moved to Florida, they were amazing. They would do an interview process where it was like you did an interview with the manager that was going to be your manager. Then you interviewed with a separate manager from a different team just because they were looking to really find like the right cultural fit. And give you access to individuals spread throughout the company. And once you made it through those couple of phases, the final phase was to meet your team. But it wasn't like, hey, have a Zoom call, see what you think of the team or whatever. It was like, we're going to go out to lunch and meet with the team.
Mhm.
And so you'd sit down for like an hour long. You don't know these people, you're about to work with them. It's like it's an interview, but it's also like you're really just seeing the dynamic of how people can get along at a lunch. Like it's a more casual setting. And it was really nice. And oh, I loved
That would
it.
be
It
pretty
was, and
cool.
of course, I
You
ended
know,
up working there, and it was like I loved the people, and it introduced the dynamic of being able to go out and have personal conversation before you even started working there, like to start building those relationships. Because we talked the other day about how it's like the more you have respect for somebody, the more you know about their personal life, the more that you feel connected to them, the more you want to deliver for them when it comes to working along their side and you know working on projects or whatever. But the other thing is that there was another company. I never worked there, local in town, and it was amazing. I toured the office because they had tons of great reviews on things that they had done internally to their office. And
hmm
they had kombucha on tap. They had a gorgeous kitchen, like wooden slabs, and they really spent the time to make their office a beautiful, enjoyable place to be. They had little phone booths where people could go into. They had coffee. But even when I was there, just touring around, it was like, hey, here's our kitchen. It's a hangout space. There were all kinds of employees in there just casually hanging out. And you walk around and you're like, oh, this is a place I want to be. Like it was, it, there's a
right.
dynamic that exists if you create the space for people to enjoy the place that wouldn't otherwise. I hate to, I know she listens, I hate to call it out, but um, when we were looking at Bree's office, it was like it very separated, like the office space. I mean, you do what you can with what you have, but
Yeah.
like for your everyday to come in and be like, okay, it's this tiny little place. There's a couple of different offices and a tiny team. You have to build from there. We're a small team too, but
Yeah, and she has to share an
it's
office.
yeah,
Like, here, I think she's sharing an office with someone
right.
else, and you have to really like that person. Here, if you don't like yourself in the bullpen environment, it's okay. Like yourself, if you don't
Well,
like someone in
that
this
was a
office, it's okay because
Freudian
you're
slip
surrounded with
because
other people.
let's be honest, Chris needs to like himself before he can like anyone else. I'm joking. I know that's a
I
good
love
thing, a
myself.
very good thing. No, it's not a
That's
problem.
one of my problems.
Everybody
I
should.
just love
No, but
life so
absolutely, it's like,
much.
and the other thing. So the company that I worked for when I first came out of college, when I look back now, it's interesting too because when you have young employees who don't know anything different, they don't realize what they have until they don't have it, and they could go work a million other jobs in their life and go, man, that
Yep.
first place, bring me back. I thought I was so slated.
It's like you said, you ride the roller
A
the
hundred
best roller
percent.
coaster first, and
Yes.
then every other roller coaster doesn't feel like that. And I actually have that with different environments. Like, one of the coolest work environments I ever
Yeah.
had was with KB Home right out of the Army, and there was 6 or 8 guys that were all the same age, all out of the military. We all worked hard, played hard, and so the
Yeah.
collaboration and the lunch meetings and everything we had was a
Well,
super
this
magical
office that
place.
I worked in, again, talking about building culture, like these things happen when you're an employee and you're like, oh, we're moving again. Because what I was going to say is that they did, talking about working next to people that you need to like, we would be in pods of four. And I
hmm
think it was like like twice a year, they would move everyone in the office. I mean, you still had like a team, but you'd move who you sat next
hmm
to So you kind of got to know someone different. And it was like, you're never too comfortable sitting in one place. You're going to learn something new about, sitting in other areas, or we're going to switch up the teams or whatever it may be. And people, like, again, you're moving and people don't like change, but then you'd be there for 3 days and you'd be like, oh my God, I love my new neighbor, like it would be awesome. Or you'd be like, ooh, this sucks. I miss my old neighbor, and when do we move again? But I there's creativity that goes into creating that cultural dynamic where you're really like creating relationships amongst the team members, because sometimes it doesn't just happen naturally. People might not feel comfortable speaking
Right.
at large group events, but they do feel comfortable sitting, next to someone at their desk and getting to know them. So it's yeah, it's so interesting running a business, and how you create that culture from within.
Right. And that's the thing. A lot of people who are running a businesses, they're not going to even think or have the space or the opportunity, or the team members who are going to go into a lunchroom and expect someone to have soup and salad for them, right? I think we're kind of going, this kind of weird direction of, I really feel like if I'm going to be doing this for 50 hours a week, like I just want to be, me personally, I just want to feel like I'm in this little candy land.
You just want to be fed.
And if we can create that, then,
I feel like
and I
everyone,
want to be fed.
you're born. All you need to do is eat and sleep and go to the bathroom. And I feel like no matter what happens in life, we still have the same necessary
I mean, that's a weird list, but
needs.
it kind of reflects our current life right now because we have a
I know.
freeloader.
Yeah. Poor
Eat,
Pepper.
sleep.
She's speaking of freeloaders, poor, our poor French bulldog.
Yeah.
She's definitely feeling jealous. All these visitors keep coming over, and she's like, "Excuse me."
I'm looking over at the monitor and the screen here, and I'm really impressed by the quality of the camera we have in
Oh,
the
compared
studio
to mine?
compared to,
No, no. So
you don't
just
really
for everyone
appreciate it.
who's listening, we use Riverside, which is an excellent platform for podcasts and
Hmm.
video recordings, and especially in a virtual environment. But we actually use it when we're in person too. And what it does is that oftentimes you'll see a very buffered, shitty image of the other person that's calling in, because it's recording you natively on your own machine, which is why when the podcast ends, if you're a guest on a podcast, you need to keep your browser open until it finishes uploading the video that it's constantly recording on your machine natively. And it doesn't bring it over to the live podcast to see a clear screen while you're recording, because it wants to have the highest quality for your own video on the native machine that you're on.
Okay.
No,
Well,
trust
we'll
me.
see how it turns out. Okay. Ooh. No,
Yeah,
trust me,
well,
that was
because I've
authoritative.
used
I
this
like it.
tool for years. I know how it works.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, hey, believe it or not, we've actually gone
I feel
53
like you
minutes
must have
today,
talked
which
forever
is about
before I
8 minutes
came.
over. I
I'm
did. And I had
sorry.
bets on when you arrive. And
I'm
I
sorry.
was at 22 and you came on right when I
You were
said
gonna
that this
message.
was the time
Well,
that I thought that you
I'm
would
sure you
probably
talked about
arrive.
some
Yeah. I figured it'd be
fantastic
7 minutes late.
things, and I apologize for being late, but we're gonna figure it out. I'm gonna be back in office in no time.
Next week. So we are
As
going to be
soon as
back in
she,
office. We've
yes,
got a
we have a
plan. We put
tiny,
together a plan
you
last
guys all
night.
know, we have a tiny little preemie. She can barely, she can barely fit in a stroller. So once we can actually transport her safely.
Yeah. So we are actually thinking about bringing her to the office next Thursday and setting something up in
We'll
the other
see.
room. So
Yeah, we're
I think,
balancing
is that
work
our
and
plan?
family.
I
We'll
don't
get
know.
my mom there.
We're going to balance work and family, and we're going to share along the way, but not make other podcasts about baby. So next week
Well,
we'll
there
hopefully
is
be
business.
talking more
Hold
about
on. So
business
for next
and
time,
like,
remind me. I want to talk about it's like been this big thing, like the egg supply. It's not even it We'll talk about it next week. Just don't let me forget. Yeah, in
okay,
business.
egg supply. All right. Well, I know that our
Well, we'll
favorite
talk
eggs
about
have
it
been
next week.
missing for a while. Now I feel like there's
No,
a surplus of
no,
eggs. Personally, I feel like people
no.
went, oh, it's back.
Next week,
The eggs.
people, we're gonna talk all
Oh,
about eggs.
all right. Next week's all about eggs. Thanks for joining us, and
No,
I'm
you
gonna go
can't
try to get
sleep.
some
You're
sleep.
working.